Hey class, in this video I'm going to talk about the idea of a stop. Imagine f-stop, just removing the letter F, and then you have the word stop left over. A stop is a measurement of light. It is either twice or half the amount of light. It's just simple as that. It's just a measurement of light, a stop. So in this example, you have two f-stops. Okay, f4 and then f5.6. Right. So f4, if you think about the opening of that in that chart, f4 is first of all a bigger opening than 5.6. Review that chart. Okay, so f4, because it's a bigger opening, allows twice the amount of light than 5.6. If you went the other way from 5.6 to f4, 5.6 is half the amount of light in terms of volume than f4. All right, but they're both one stop difference either way. Okay, so let me review that chart. If you have f4 right here, notice that the opening of f4 is about approximately twice the opening of 5.6. Therefore, you're going to have twice the volume of light between f4 and 5.6. However, if you're looking at it from the perspective of 5.6, it is half the amount of light in comparison to f4. These two, the difference between these two f-stops is one stop. If I went from 5.6 to f8, it's the same kind of relationship. 5.6 is double the amount of light in terms of volume compared to f8. And f8 is half the amount compared to 5.6. They are one stop difference. And from f8 to f11 is another stop, f11 to f16 is one stop, and so forth. These are all considered full f-stops. Okay? Back in the film days, well, your lenses would only go to these full f-stops. However, in this digital era, your lenses can actually go in between these full f-stops. So that is why if you were to go to your lens, if you were to go to, let's say, from f8 and you close down to f11, you would see along the way there f9, f10, and then f11. These are incremental stops, or 1/3. So from f8 to f9, that's 1/3 stop difference in value. From f9 to f10, another third, and then finally for f10, another third. But this whole distance between f8 and f11 is one complete stop. It kind of looks like a ruler if you think about it, right? Like whole inches, and then what's in between the whole inches, fractions of an inch. Okay, so if you were at f9 and you went from f9 to, say, f13, that would be considered a full stop difference between f9 and f13. Okay, so take a look at your lenses. You can pause this video and see if you have these numbers that are in between f8 and f11. More than likely, your camera is set up to see incremental of third stops. Some cameras allow you to see it half stops. So if you had from f8, then you saw 9.5, and then you saw f11, then your lens is set up to see half stops and not incremental. Which is better? If you have it on third stops, that means you have much more options in between two full stops, right? You have that much more accuracy in setting your aperture by a third stop accuracy instead of just a half stop. Okay, so most cameras would have an option to set it third, half. Some cameras don't even have. You can set it to no, just full stops. Then in that case, you wouldn't see any numbers in between. That's taking you back to the film days where they didn't have any these incremental stops in between. All right. Now, the idea of a stop is not just limited to f-stops. So we can also see it in your shutter speeds. Okay. So, for example, if we have shutter speed 1 over 1/25th of a second, and you compare that to the next stop, which is 1 over 2/50th of a second, this is a faster shutter speed, by the way. 1 over 125 is slower than 1 over 250. How do we know? Look at the bottom number. If this number is lower, then it is a slower shutter speed, meaning the shutter is going to open and close slower. Okay, this number is slower than 1/250th. It isn't necessarily a slow shutter speed. What I'm saying is it's just slower than 1 over 250. So in terms of a stop, 1 over 125 allows twice the amount of light in terms of time compared to 1 over 250. 1 over 250 allows half the amount of light in terms of time than 1 over 125. Again, these are just one stop. And if you look at it, if you multiply 1 over 1, if you multiply 125 times 2, you get 250, right? Or if you divide this, it becomes 125, right? That's roughly how you do that with shutter speeds. Similarly to apertures, your shutter speeds also have it broken down in third stops. So if you were to go to 1/25th of a second and you wanted to make your shutter faster to 250, you would see 1 over 160, 1 over 200, and then finally 1 over 250. These numbers in between are incremental shutter speeds or third stops. Okay, so the idea of a stop is a measurement of light, and it's either going to be twice the amount or half the amount. Okay, depending on which way you're going, either opening up your lens or closing down, or you're slowing down your shutter speed or increasing the speed. So if we look at it this way, shutter speeds, this is 1/4 of a second, 1 over 4. Okay, and we're going to increase the speed to 1/8 of a second. So this is actually now half the amount of light compared to 1/4 of a second. And we go so forth. We keep going faster and faster, 1 over 8 to 1/15, and so forth, right? So this, the difference between 1/4 to 8 is one stop, 1 over 1/15 to 1/38 is one stop, etc. So if we're going this way, if we're going faster, we're allowing half as much light in the shutter as the speed increases. As you increase the speed, you're darkening your image because you're allowing less light to come in. The shutter's opening and closing faster, therefore darkening the image, not letting as much light in. Okay. Now in terms of aperture, if we start at f22, the really closed down aperture, and then we opened up from f22 to f16, that is one stop. Right? If we went from f22 to f16 going that way, that is allowing twice the amount of light in terms of volume. Right? f16 to f11, f11 to f8, and so forth. We're allowing twice as much light in. It's going to brighten the image. So as we open up the lens, we are allowing more light to come in. Right? So you'll notice this. If you start to increase your shutter speed when you're looking through your viewfinder, your exposure will start to get darker. Your meter will probably go into the underexposed section. And as you open up your lens, you'll notice the meter will start going to the plus side possibly, or start moving to get brighter because you're allowing more light in. Right? And of course vice versa. However you're going to work it, if you start to slow your shutter down, you're allowing more light in with time, so therefore it's going to brighten the image. Okay, so understand how to brighten and darken your images based upon this chart here. you increase your shutter speed, you're making the shutter open and close faster, you're darkening the image. If you were to slow it down, you would actually brighten the image. If you were to open up your lens, meaning a smaller f-stop number, you're actually brightening the image because you're literally opening up your lens. If you were to close your lens down, going the other direction, increase the f-stop number, then you would darken the image. Okay? So think about which direction you need to go when you are looking at your meter and trying to get it to the zero. Okay? So that is the idea of a stop. It is a measurement of light.